Lots of people, however, do remember, 1979 and, lived through everything
you
that
don't even
then
that old,
followed.
do you remember 1979, early 79. Yeah.
When you and Tony discussed that, did you just think, yeah, that absolutely seems...
Totally, absolutely.
fit.
Everything fell into place. Yeah. The whole thing. I could never get a handle on Trofimov, as he's called in the original, and Trotter or Trotsky in my version. I could never get a hang of what he was on about.
How would you describe his character then?
Well, he's a kind of utopian idealist. He's an idealist and not a fantasist at all, but he believes in this utopia, which if we work hard and everything goes right, we'll get to, like heaven on earth, like paradise in earth. And so I never really believed him in the Chekhov version, the original version. So it gave me real ammunition for him when he's discussing the politics of the day and the history of the Labour regime up till then. Yeah.
Because he really does that, especially with, I suppose, he's a person who's a real counterpoint to Mrs. Ramsay Mackay. Yeah. He's trying to kind of, in a sense, wake her from her torpor, if you like.
Aye, well, the thing is the same. They're all very distinct characters in Chekhov, and they all have distinct and particular points of view, and they're all human beings. That's what you discover in Chekhov. He's got great sympathy and empathy for everybody he writes about. He doesn't write from a single point of view. It seems to be he's got great compassion for everybody, and that's the great gift of Chekhov. Really is to me when I'm writing my version. And you forget that at your peril.
Do you start with one basic text, or do you look at different translations?
I look at lots of different ones, and usually ones by anonymous people you've never heard of, which are more literal in the sense so you can get back to what it was straight from the horse's mouth. I mean, I've gone back to much older versions than usual, ones of produced in the 20s and stuff.
So does that mean you get back to the essence of the meaning rather than a translator imposing their own style, maybe, or their own humour on it?
You hope you're getting back to closer to Chekhov's original, and they're still not very funny. No, they're not that funny. But I know they are comedies, so if he calls them a comedy. Mm-hmm. I don't know what he called The Seagull. He didn't call that a tragedy, did he? He might have done that. I think it's a tragedy.
So, I'm not sure. Do you then, just the process, it's fascinating just to imagine what you do, because I'm imagining you surrounded by, various translations. Do you then get to a stage where you put all of those aside and you just you absorb it?
I've absorbed, by that time I've read maybe 3 or 4 different adaptations. And most of them, they're very close to one another. And then you just take off from that and obviously make up your own dialogue. Yeah. And to the same point that Chekhov's making in the dialogue of his characters. Now, you get as close as possible. Yeah. But they say it in a different, slightly more roundabout way at times.
Is it just a happy accident that this production is happening now, just pre a general election? Because it does give the production people come along tonight to see it, an extra resonance.
I did say to Tony that you earn your luck. If you're onto something that's really right, then you're blessed. You got all the blessings rained on you. And so it's an unhappy accident that it is. It's rather good.
But do you think it is that sense of sniffing around and sort of sensing something in the air, a spirit of some kind of change?
If you do something right, then you do get all those strange things, quirks happen that favour you. You get manna from heaven. You really do. I do believe in that. Yeah.
Now, you've not designed the set, but you are costume designer.
Along with Michael Taylor.
Along with Michael Taylor, who's also costume designer. Set designer. And it's interesting, in the little programme, the physical programme we have for the production, we can see your sketches, which are just wonderful.
Very true. They were just on the wee note, but they were never meant for anything other than shown to the wardrobe.
But we're very
You
glad
know.
they are, because they're just fascinating, whether you like it or not. They are great.
Yeah.
But I just wonder how important that is for you as such a visual person when
It's
it
very
comes to...
important to me to do, because I think clothes tell you so much about people. Psychologically, if you get them accurate and right, then you can tell you a lot about the character. Yeah, you can't just throw any old clothes on. Whoever it is, Ramsay Mackay or Guy, for instance, you know, they've got to say they're a huge help for an audience. I don't mean you can read the character immediately, but you give you ideas about what kind of character that particular person is.
And at what point did you do that? Is that way down the line when the script is finished and it's ready, you're casting and stuff? Or I'm wondering whether those visual sketches is something that you do when you're in the course of thinking about the adaptation or even writing it?
It comes before. It comes at the same time along with the writing of it. Yeah, it sometimes happens on page 1. You know, when you're doing a list of cast list or character list, and it sometimes happens a wee bit into it, and sometimes mostly it goes along. They go hand in hand. Yeah, it's especially if I'm writing my own stuff, purely my own stuff. I know exactly who those characters are, and the drawings probably come before the play itself. I always have an opening for a play of my own. I don't know. I never know how it's going to end. That's why it's slightly a thankless task doing an adaptation. You know how it's going to end. I never like that.
Well, I wondered if it was, because I do think you're so fascinating because you're both an artist, a brilliant painter, and a playwright, and you do the adaptations too. And I imagine the total freedom of, literally the blank canvas and creating your own work of art, a visual work of art, painting. And then the same one might say is true of creating your own work with words, your own original play.
True.
I'm wondering, is there presumably there isn't anything comparable in the world of painting to adapting somebody else's work?
No, not unless you do copies of... you can do pastiches of things. And Picasso did lots of pastiches of, or homage, as we call them, to Velasquez and various other people, which is good fun. But the original thing itself is the best one, because you have no idea how it's going to come out, as we Americans say.
So when you're doing those, as you say, sometimes it's in page 1, you might do some character sketches.
Yeah.
Does that really help formulate for you not only maybe the look of the character, but how they'll speak?
Yeah, and see, I know how they'll speak, and I know what they look like.
So
I know
all at
what
once, you know that?
Yeah, I know how and I've got to get their names. Once I've got their name, I really have to get their names right. And once I've got their names, I can draw them. See, and then I know who they are.
So presumably, although we said at the beginning that you had seen a number of productions and read and Laurence Olivier, maybe it's not so good at the point when you're steeping yourself in the words to actually watch some productions.
No good to watch a production. That's why the one in the Wireless drove me nuts. I thought it was just hellish. Yeah. It was, oh God, they must have all been on creeping about in their knees like a bunch of creeps, Chekhov would have hated it. He would have found it funny, but he would have hated it.
So do you think, presumably, I guess you hope that Chekhov would like your production?
I hope he would. I'm not sure he would. I think he would enjoy the fun of it, as well as the what is intrinsically in there, the tragedy of getting dealt, as McCracken says at the end, he says about getting the buggered up hands have been dealt with, about him and Ramsay Mackay. So that's there. Because there's no a kind of empty vessel, McCracken. He's had a tough life.